on?
I work for two different places, and one uses text to speech because it's all videos and television and stuff.
Yeah.
And we use something called ARPABET. So it's even weirder because the letters aren't at all the same.
Oh, really?
So it's and you have to, like, I have to physically look at a list that says, okay, embarrassed, like I'm sounding out every word and then clicking it in. But then the robot says it better because it understands the ARPABET better. It's a weird thing. I'm used to it now, but it takes a lot of getting used to because you're not looking for the letter. You're trying to spell out the word, but it's not the letter that you know.
It's more like phonetics then, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not even, it's just a weird thing, ARPABET.
You think it would have like a word bank, so you could pick words?
Well, and we have a quote unquote word bank that has like 6 words in it. And we've been using this for 3 years. And I don't know why there's not, I have a handwritten list. Because even things like close the door and close to you, it always chooses the wrong word. Yeah. Or, use, or, all those words that have slightly different pronunciations don't work. So that's a text-to-speech problem.
Yeah. Keeps you on your toes though, doesn't it?
So I'll just do a bit of a welcome because I've just started to record. So if anyone clicks on this on YouTube, they'll actually have a bit of an idea of what's going on. So it's the Audio Description Association's Zoom discussion session for Friday, the 11th of December, and it's the one we're having just before Christmas. And then we'll have one perhaps around between the 10th and 15th of January. I think the next one. So how is everybody? Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you all here. And we're going to have
I'm Margaret. I'm Margaret. I appear to be invisible.
Oh,
my name is there, but I'm not.
We can hear you at least.
We can hear you,
Okay,
Margaret.
fine. Right, okay.
We're probably going to have about an hour today, and it's basically a platform for you to discuss anything that you'd like, ask any questions, engage in any sort of any debate or issues that are sort of going on at the moment. So how is everybody in their own areas and their own fields at the moment?
Okay, thank you.
I've got my map up, so I'm ready for you guys to tell me where you are so I can look you up again.
Yeah, we'll do a little bit of, we'll just go around and introduce ourselves and say where we are and whatever you want to about yourself.
About yourself.
Well, because you can't we all hate this sort of thing where we have to go around and introduce ourselves. Like, I don't know how many times I ever do it, but I never really enjoy it that much. But
it's good for connecting us, isn't it?
Yes, but it's quite interesting and important for Zoom, because sometimes we have people who are joining for the first time and don't know people. So
that's fair enough. Yep.
So I will kick off. I'm Tim Calvert. I'm in Crawley at the moment, and I'm sort of representing the Audio Description Association, but I'm like sort of have my finger in lots of other pies as well, like access, inclusion, audio production, and all sorts of things. But I do a lot of reviews of audio description. So we'll go over to Steph. Hello, Steph.
Oh, hi, I'm Steph. I'm in South Wales, just to put me geographically somewhere. So
how are you finding it there?
Oh, I'm so glad I moved here. Just have the most lovely house, and I'm looking at a field of green. So whereabouts
are you, Steph? In South Wales?
In Barry.
Oh, Barry, I know Barry well.
Not Barry
Nice.
Island, I should say.
Barry,
but
yeah.
Barry,
yeah.
Barry.
Mm.
So things aren't good in Wales at the moment, as you probably know. We're struggling with the virus. We're the worst off of any UK area at all, just at the moment. So no theatre, no nothing. I don't think anywhere's planning to open until the spring.
Right.
I'm not doing any audio description at the moment, but I have been doing iCaption as well, and I've been doing captioning on Zoom. So at the moment, I'm in the middle of a panto for Nottingham Playhouse, which will go out on a live stream on Zoom next week. So I know there's quite a lot of audio description going on Zoom and similar streaming outlets as well, but it just hasn't caught on yet. That's me.
So we move over. Shall we move on to Mo? Hello, Mo.
Hello, I'm Mo. I work with the Derby Audio Describers in Derby in the Midlands in the UK. I'm delighted to say that at the last moment, we've been approached for not one, but 2 Christmas shows in Derby.
Brilliant.
So we just have not had a nibble all year. And I think with the second lockdown and Derby going into tier 3, which is quite serious, the theatres have just decided to do everything online. So they'd been umming and ahhing about the live shows. And then once they'd got them online and it was a definite, I think then they thought, oh crumbs, well, we could do some access now. So it's been very short notice, and it's going to be a very tight turnaround. But I just feel like it's keeping that connection going until we sort of claw our way through this period to the sunny climes of post-vaccine Britain again. So that's where we are.
Megan, all over the other side of the pond.
Yes, I'm in the US, in the Midwest, in St. Louis. So meet me in St. Louis. And I'm doing some virtual stuff. That's all we got going on here. A lot of Americans think that they can just run around and give everybody COVID. So we're about to go back into lockdown as well. We had our worst day in this country 2 days ago. Was over 3,000 people died in one day. So, which has now surpassed Pearl Harbor and 9/11 for one day deaths. So it's not looking great here, except we are now 40 days from Inauguration Day. So we're hoping for a plus there. But audio description is, we had the big Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And if any of you have ever lived in the US, it is the biggest parade ever in the country, and it's been televised forever, for years. And this was the first year it had audio description. For whatever reason, they hired a Canadian company to do it for an American holiday, for the most American parade ever. But whatever. Unfortunately, it didn't trickle down to all the local stations because it was on regular network television. So it was kind of an issue because there were lots of cities around the country that didn't have audio description after they were touting it as having audio description. But it was a pretty big day for audio description in the US in general. And also during the parade, which was hosted by TV hosts from like a regular morning television that everybody knows, they apparently kept saying it over and over that for the first time the parade had audio description. So it was really an important day for people who had never heard of audio description to get the word out. So didn't have anything to do with me, but it was really exciting that was happening.
So Joe next.
Oh, hi. Yeah, lovely. Hello, lovely to see everybody from my wardrobe studio. Yeah, all's fine. I'm in South Oxfordshire. Yeah, I had an email from Oxford Playhouse, who have been fundraising, and they have £250,000 raised, and they regularly send through just to keep their name in the picture. And they've got some panto and children's shows over Christmas. Nothing yet re-audio description, but I'll keep in touch with them. I'm really pleased on a personal level that I'm up and running now to describe at home, and so I've been working. I've done two shows, and I've got an editorial thing coming up. So I feel that I've moved through the portal into the digital world, and I'm employable again. Hallelujah! But all's good.
Jenny next. Jenny.
Hello, I'm Jenny. I am currently in Suffolk, in the little village just outside Ipswich, which is my kind of temporary COVID shielding hideout. I'm usually in London, although I do work a lot around the Suffolk area. And I have spent the last few months getting back into work after quite a long time off sick, and obviously finding that my work doesn't really exist anymore, which is interesting. So yeah, like lots of people, I've been exploring the shift towards digital things. I've been very lucky actually that I managed to get a grant from Grey Eyes fund for disabled freelancers towards some equipment and got my Reaper software using that. So I feel like that's, you know, enabled me to kind of make a little bit of headway towards things. Yeah, and I've just done a couple of digital jobs now, and I'm sort of feeling my way, but starting to get there with it. I've also joined the Ada exec and was sort of responsible for the survey around CPD that went out recently, and looking at how we can support Ada members kind of next year with professional development things. They'll be on Zoom, but that may well mean that, you know, we can make them more accessible to more people who wouldn't usually be at face-to-face things. Yeah, so watch this space on that front. I was hoping Joel might be here because I'm quite interested to find out whether there's been any progress with the audio description button for YouTube. So if anybody else happens to know anything about how that's coming along, I'd be very interested to know. And that's about me for the moment.
Di next.
Oh, hi, Di Langford here. I work for Vocalize, and I also work for The Bush, and they've just opened with a one-woman show, and they want to have it audio described. So I'm actually going up to London to describe it next week. And then they're going to have a professional film made of it, and they're going to put it out, stream it, and they're going to have audio description attached to it. So that's great. That's really good. I've got myself a mic now, so I've been doing some recording as well. So that's been really good. Yeah. So the digital world, I've sort of embraced that a bit as well. Still struggling a bit, but I'm getting there.
Julia. Hi, Julia.
Hi, yeah, I'm in the Midlands, and I work for the RSC when they are up and running, which they are not really in terms of audio description at the moment. But I'm doing some bit of stuff with Northern Ballet at the moment, which is a sort of over the next few months doing an audio description for one of their up and coming productions, which I think once it tours, hopefully in the spring, they will have the audio description will be run digitally with it as it tours, as well as when they stream it eventually online. The audio description will go both. And also I'm doing some work on a digital version of something that was at the Globe last Christmas. So it's their Christmas production repeated, this time rather sadly in an empty Globe, but it's going to be audio described. We're going to redo the audio description we did last year and adapt it to this year. So there's some, and Birmingham Rep have rung and have asked if, they've given me some dates for next spring, so that's good.
Good.
So fingers crossed.
Ruth. Welcome, Ruth. Oh, I think you're still on mute.
Yeah, hello. I'm so sorry I was late. I was in the middle of doing the Nutcracker, Julia. Hurrah! But may I say, Di and Joe, that Gary says that you two are amazing. Just to pass it on.
Oh, that's
that
good.
You're both wonderful and you do amazing work.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Just
yes,
so you know.
yesterday was a bit
Nice
of a
to
kill.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said he had a bit of a moment, but you were wonderful. It wasn't your fault, sort of thing. If you see what I mean. And he said he was delighted to have done something so difficult with somebody who was so wonderful and adapted so well and stayed calm, and it just got done.
It's a good
That's
thing
brilliant.
to do.
That should be a confidence boost.
Yes,
Yeah, well,
no, I feel good. I feel good. And don't we need to feel good, you know?
Yeah.
We need to feel that we're planning and we're looking forward and we've got things in the pipeline, things in the diary to stay positive. So good on you all.
But yes, no, hello, I'm in London, and as you guessed, obviously I'm doing the Nutcracker for Sightlines. And just in the middle of doing it too, so I may well be leaving early, but but it's nearly done.
Is that online, Ruth?
No, it's actually real. We actually
Oh,
went into the theatre.
The one at
Opera House.
Oh yeah. How are you finding that?
Fine. Weird, odd.
Yeah.
You know, you look to the audience and it's half empty, with empty rows in between every row and everyone wearing masks. And you know, trying to clap for those long curtain calls when there's half the number of people. And you're not supposed to shout and holler, obviously, you know. Yeah, awkward.
Ruth, is it a trimmed down cast as it is with Northern Ballet? They've just got 9 dancers.
Yes, they've got.
How many have they got?
It was the first time they'd taken their masks off was for that particular dress rehearsal. They'd all rehearsed in masks. And there were 6 mice and 6 toy soldiers, all much larger than usual because they haven't used the school. So we had quite large mice and soldiers rather than the cute little ones.
So they must have had to produce new costumes as well.
Yeah, and far fewer guests at the initial party. Normally it's crowded and everyone's bumping into each other, but there were just, we didn't count them, but you know, it was almost empty, but it was still felt good.
So pleased.
Kira. Hello, Kira.
Hi everyone, my name is Kira. I'm from Ukraine, from Kiev.
Hi.
And for the past several months I was working with 4 museums. Now I have 3 to finish. We were making some accessibility for blind visitors. It was digital accessibility, and we've made several things in museum. And starting from next week, I will have 6 or 8 plays in Operetta House. It will be a place for kids about New Year, about Christmas, and so on, because in Ukraine, the conditions of quarantines were changed, and total lockdown will be in January, not in December. So we're waiting for our visitors. And we will start from rehearsals of all plays, because our actors, producers want to change something. So we will see how it will be.
Good.
Margaret, finally.
Right, you can't see me, but I am here. Margaret Gillis, moved with my husband 3 years ago from a beautiful part of Scotland down here, and we live near Worcester, which is about an hour from Birmingham in the Midlands of England. Not getting any work at all. The only thing had been the Christmas panto at the Swan Theatre in Worcester, but that isn't happening this year. So I have had nothing. There is nothing in the pipeline. I'm just hoping things might pick up a bit in 2021. That's it from me.
Thank you, Margaret. So,
Megan, I forgot to say where I am. I'm in Brighton, which is right at the bottom, the very bottom, in Sussex.
Yes,
you
and did I
getting
say
on?
I was in London as well? Ruth James, I'm in London. Sorry,
I can
guys.
figure out where London is. I've got that one on the map.
How are you getting on with your bearings, Megan?
Ruth, have you retreated to your bed? You're covered in a duvet. Or is that your recording studio?
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Yes, because Gary has just texted me to say that he's done things. Can I listen to them? So I moved upstairs swiftly,
Right, okay.
so I could do that.
Yes, I know the feeling. I'm in my wardrobe.
Yes, I can't do the washing unless I've stopped having a sound studio, because I've got both my areas are being used to hold up duvets.
I'm very comforted by the fact that this is how people are making their studios.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Yeah, but there are professionals all over, you know, there are professionals all over the world who are doing exactly the same thing at the moment. So, and people who are doing audio books and all sorts of things, voiceover artists, commercials, you know, lots where they would normally go into a studio. It's all lots. There are some who've got little professional studios with sort of foam padded walls, but there's a lot who are having to adapt. And like I use like a sort of I have got a couple of professional. I'll actually grab it and I'll try and show you mine, but I've got a couple of these. If I can try to show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they're like sort of foam, and they get a good sound when you're recording. But I also use like this sort of thing with clothes on around me, and it's the most amazing way of buffering sound. If you have one of them indoors that you put your sort of clothes on.
Clothes horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I record in like a flat which has got a lounge and a kitchen, and you've got all these external noises, and it's amazing how something like that gets rid of those like hums and, you know, and the atmosphere in the room, which often can sound a bit echoey. But
It's kind of hilarious, because the reason I really wanted to get out of my tiny flat in London was because if I wanted to work, I basically had my head in the washing area. It turns out that's perfect. That's what I need
one
to
of the best, one of the actual best ways is getting a duvet cover and actually suspending it over you and over your mic and over your script. It's incredibly fiddly, but it gets rid of, it produces a wonderful sound, and you've got no atmospheric external sort of noise at all. But it's a bit tricky, especially when you've got 3 or 4 pages and you're trying to change sort of pages and you've got a sheet over you. But it works.
It's a bit hot in the summer too.
It works incredibly well, but there are ways, you know, but a lot of people are going, you know, a lot of people are finding little spaces where they're putting sort of cushions, hanging drapes.
Yeah.
Like drapes is a very good one if you can hang some like sort of old curtains, or you know, because it just buffers the sound and it reduces all of that.
Yeah, towels are good as well.
Yeah, towels are excellent, you know, so anything like that that absorbs sound and sort of bounces off is excellent. How is everybody, so as we're like sort of a couple of weeks before Christmas, how is everyone feeling in relation to it being very different this year? in relation to the uncertainty with tiers, and I know that some of you have sort of projects on, but they're not the usual sort of projects you would probably do. So how's everybody feeling in that respect?
Okay, quite stoic. Just accepting it. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Just delighted when anything comes in. It's unexpected, but it suddenly comes in and it brightens your whole day.
Yeah.
Well, I think a positive out of the situation has been these meetings.
I agree.
If things had rumbled on as normal, I wouldn't be meeting people from the Ukraine or the States or other parts of the UK. So I think if you've managed to hang on to your good health, I think I'm just being grateful for the other positives, really.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to connect, I think, you know, because we've spent a lot of time indoors and a lot of time not, you know, not sort of interacting with the people and the things we would usually interact with. And I think that can sometimes be damaging, you know, to your well-being and your mental health. And I think it's really important, you know, to stay connected as much as possible. And I think Zoom is a wonderful platform for that. It's sometimes a logistical sort of nightmare, you know, to get everyone together, you know, because the amount of, you know, sort of people who have things that pop up at the last minute and then they have Zooms at the same time, and then you've got a limited availability as well. You know, that I find that is the hardest aspect of arranging this. And also it's sometimes the priority is that some people have other things that are higher priority, which means we've, like, for the last few, we've had a smaller group, but not to say that a smaller group isn't good, because I think it creates more of an intimacy, and gives people more of an opportunity to sort of chat about things and sort of connect. But looking forward, you know, sort of looking forward to next year, and like the sort of the sort of vaccine being getting out a lot more. How are people feeling in respect to you know, things slowly returning back to some sort of normality, and has been able to sort of go back into, you know, places again and do the things we did before? Is there a lot of sort of positive anticipation around that?
Yes, I'd say so. And when things are in place, and I think it's great that, sorry, I'm just chewing up.
No, it's fine.
Sucky boy sweet. When we can go into theatres with some sort of health and safety template, a piece of paper that just reassures the powers that be, then that's where we belong, I think, because, well, stating the obvious, you know, but it's a personal interaction with our users. It's a full service that we're giving. It's not just the voice in the ear, it's the touch tour, it's the sharing and the atmosphere and the chat and the, you know, all that I know our users are really keen to see restored. So I look forward to it.
It's the audience, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm working on a panto at the moment, not audio describing, but it's a panto that's going to be streamed, and it just doesn't seem to work. It doesn't have that life to it without an audience. It feels hollow, and they're kind of working their butts off trying to do this panto, which they thought they were going to open a theatre for, clearly, until they went into tier 3. But so I can't wait to go back into a theatre, which I am doing in a couple of weeks' time, a live theatre. Again, not audio describing, but I've asked for their policy, their written statement on COVID, and they immediately sent it to me. So it's quite reassuring that theatres have thought through their freelancers and how they deal in view of the virus, the kind of expectations, and consideration being given to where they're placing people as well within the theatre, which I found incredibly reassuring, incredibly so. And I just can't wait to get back into an actual theatre, albeit with a panto, and I hate panto, I hate it with a vengeance.
See, I think panto is, I think panto was designed for audience interaction, wasn't it? And it was designed to be in a venue and for, you know, that whole atmosphere. And I agree with you. I don't feel it works online, you know, because you don't have that. It makes it a little bit flat.
It's all the same reasons as why they use canned laughter on TV shows, isn't it? But
like,
can you put canned laughter on your live stream theatre?
For 2 or 3 years, yeah, I think.
Suggest it.
Yeah, but for 2 or 3 years, I think ITV did their own sort of recorded pantos at Christmas, and I just never enjoyed them at all. It just didn't really work. It just came across flat, you know, because the whole, you either see pantos a bit like Marmite, you love it or you hate it, you know. Some people love panto. I think I'm a bit in between. I think I just love being out in a theatre, whatever it is. I don't mind, like, I think with reviewing things and like actually going and observing, there isn't anything I don't enjoy anymore. Like, even if something wasn't my cup of tea, I would enjoy it, you know. There'd be something about it that I would really I would find interesting or fascinating. Just to bring up a important thing that you mentioned, Steph, I've been into a few theatres over the last week or two, and I'm going into a couple more, and I've actually found that some venues have been absolutely amazing with the safety aspect. There was one venue, I don't know if I should mention it sort of live on a recorded Zoom, but there was one venue that wasn't very good at all. And we were a bit like, I was with a friend in my bubble, and we were horrified. There was basically people in front of us and people behind us, and we weren't really spaced out. And there seemed to be this almost ideology that because everyone was wearing a face mask, you know, everyone was actually protected. But there was still a lot of people in quite sort of close proximity to each other, and we have fed that back to the theatre. But I went to the Bridge. I went to see the Christmas Carol at the Bridge this week, and that was stunning what they achieved there, you know, because everything was so well orchestrated. You had a slot when you arrived. You had everything emailed to you, your ticket. Everyone was spaced out. It's nice because they've got a lot of space there, but everywhere was spaced out. They got the temperature things built in above the ceiling, and you just stood there a bit like when you're at airport and you're going through security, and you had your temperature scanned. And all of their seats were spaced out in 2s and 1s because it's adaptable theatre, auditorium. They can take their seats out, you know, and it just felt natural. It felt the most natural thing. there was an app. If you wanted a drink, you can order a drink and they would bring it to your seat. It was the most natural experience. And then the actual production itself, Nicholas Heitner had sort of taken a cast of 3 and found a wonderfully creative way of producing A Christmas Carol by having 3 actors narrate and act out the story, and also 3 very, very good actors. I mean, actors who could flip from one role to another, and they were doing little costume changes and little props, and they had all of Victorian London sort of displayed on a screen at the back, and used quite a lot of smoke and, you know, those sort of effects. But it was just a lovely experience, and I think other theatres have been sort of consulting with the Bridge as well, like Hampstead, and you know, because they've been doing it so well. But it was very different to that other theatre that I went, where there wasn't really any of that at all. And
perhaps you should let us know privately which theatre that was.
I will. I will let everybody know about that. See,
you
because
put it in the chat, Tim.
yeah, I will do.
Chat. Yeah.
I will do one when somebody else is speaking. I will. But so the thing is that I've got a lot of I'm a little bit nervous about is if London's going to go into tier 3, you know, because there's a lot of shows scheduled and quite a few audio descriptions actually that are planned to go ahead in the London area. There's the London Palladium sort of panto, there's the Almeida, I've got an audio description on January the 2nd, and I think it is very touch and go if London will go into tier 3 next week, because they've got the highest figures in the country now.
But then presumably they'll close the theatres then if it goes into 3.
Well, unless they change the rules, yeah, you know, because at the moment the rules basically say that theatres and restaurants and pubs can't open in tier 3. So unless they change the rules and tweak it a little bit, which I can't see them doing somehow, because it's kind
happening.
of...
Yeah.
It's happening across the regions. Curve have just announced today that they're not opening their doors to their panto, and that was all ready to go.
Yeah.
And same with Nottingham. Nottingham being poised to go for the last 2 weeks, and they just keep postponing their opening night, which is why they're doing it online, because they've rehearsed it. They've, you know, they're paying out good customers. So, you know, because of all the uncertainty about whether they go in or out of tier 3. Same with Derby, Mo, isn't it? So
Birmingham too.
Yes, I mean, Derby Theatre they decided quite late, I think, to put it online when they realised they couldn't open. But quite cleverly, they are not doing a Christmas panto. They rarely do a straight panto, but they often do a Christmas show, which is a story. Like for one year they did Cinderella. Well, that's not specific to Christmas. And this year their Christmas show is The Little Mermaid. And they're saying that if COVID restrictions are lifted because the pandemic is under control in the spring, they will basically roll out the same show as an Easter show for children, and will be invited back to audio describe it live. But it's smart, because it means they won't have wasted all of that rehearsal and the beautiful set and the costumes and the skill of the actors and everything. I must admit, I have always felt a little bit miffed when I've showed up to a play and it's only been a two-hander or a solo show, And I think there was a period in British theatre when this was really, really on the increase because of costs, that you couldn't pay that many company members. So you had playwrights who scaled down their work so that it would sell, because if they wrote a play with a massive cast, they knew that nobody would be able to put it on. And I used to think it was a bit of a cheat for the poor old audience to stump up their ticket money and then be presented, you know, with the whole of Great Expectations with only 2 actors, you know, and you're like looking at the cost of the ticket and thinking. But now that creativity is an absolute saviour for the theatre. So it is absolutely amazing. And I'm really impressed with the Derby theatre companies, because the Kiddies Christmas show is outside. There is one actor working in a sort of Christmassy log cabin building. And when you enter the cabin, you walk around another internal room, which is decorated like a big box-shaped machine. And the audience is tiny. You're only allowed up to 6 people. And these shutters open behind a window, and it's a window into this Christmas machine where a little elf works and has all the presents received and wrapped and everything. So it's a one-person show, and the whole thing is viewed through this little elf window. It's just so imaginative, and it is charming. And a certain bearded character in a red suit does make an appearance via a sort of Zoom link on a video screen, and it's just so wonderful the way they've done it. And it is a tiny show, it's like 15 minutes, which gives them long enough to get an audience in, delight the infants, have them out and kind of hose down the place with disinfectant before the next 20-minute slot. So they're just doing shows through the day to try and make up the audience numbers that way. But I was really impressed, because I was bracing myself for a kind of this will have to do kind of show, and it's wonderful. It's really, really magical. So I think we have to be very grateful to the creative people, because they are really, really working so hard to think their way out of this conundrum.
I think Sarah Brigham has really done herself proud over the whole 9 months or so. I mean, they've been working really hard doing all sorts of development work with young actors as well, which, you know, while their doors have been closed, they've been hard at work, sort of teaching and giving young people a chance to develop their skills, which is amazing. And also working very closely with Nottingham and Leicester. The 3 of them have kind of pulled together quite a lot of stuff as well. And I think, you know, it's going to strengthen those theatres that are working together. And those theatres who are sitting back, doing absolutely nothing, just waiting for the virus to be over. I'm just surprised. I'm just staggered at that. I mean, I suggested to Birmingham Rep that they could consider doing some stuff online, and it was just, oh, don't tell our tech boys that. They'll have us doing some work. You know, it was kind of, what? It was a joke. I mean, it wasn't a serious response in one sense, but it was the feeling that they were just sitting and waiting. Although they have had ballet there, haven't they, Julia?
Birmingham Royal Ballet has been using their stage, but I don't think anything's going on in Birmingham at the moment, though, because it's in Tier 3. So, and I know that.
Yeah, I've asked several times, and Nigel has always come back with, it'll probably be March, and then the latest one, or it may be April, or it may be May. So, you know.
Well, he's contacted me with some dates for ADs, but that's around then. It's around April. So.
Yeah, I asked him for dates, and he said there weren't any.
I don't know whether they were. I can't remember dates or shows.
Interesting.
I just
said. Is there any audio describing? Maybe they're doing I mean, they have.
I just said yes because I knew I wasn't doing anything else at the time. So
well, mind you, I've got a booking for January 2022.
Excellent.
I think it's a bit hit and miss, isn't it? I think that some venues have come a bit, have become a little complacent, and then other venues like the Dunmore and, you know, the Bridge and the Old Vic have, and also the National, have like really become creative, and actually small venues like Home and Manchester have been very good as well, and put a lot of stuff online and been incredibly creative with what they're doing. And then there's other venues that you would have thought have been very active, have been incredibly quiet, you know. So it's been interesting to actually see how sort of COVID has affected venues, and that some have the approach, oh well, we can't really do anything until everything returns to normal. And then you've got some venues who think, well, if we don't do something now, we're not going to be here, you know. So they get their best creatives and they sort of come up with a solution, and that has produced some wonderful things. And I think there'll be a lot of debate, I think, in years to come about how theatres coped in 2020.
I think it's really interesting that you guys are all so excited about shows that are like now in December and January, and the only word that I could think of is terrifying. I would not get close to a theater. We don't have any theaters that are open, but I mean, we're talking July, August, maybe fall shows. It's more, how can I say this? It's more the people in the regular people than the theaters themselves that are scary, because it doesn't necessarily, you know, we have rules about mask wearing that are kind of like, well, you know, you can't, whatever. So nobody wants to. There are pretty much two groups of people that wear their mask around people, and the people that absolutely think COVID is a hoax. So it's scary to be out there in general, but that thought of like, oh, we're excited to be in the theater is terrifying to me. Like, I'm not getting close to, if a theater opened, I would not be in it. Mainly for the people that would be in the audience that would just be tossing their masks off and coughing on you. And, you know.
Although there are people here who think that sort of COVID is a hoax as well. So.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad to know that it's not just an America thing, but I'm also kind of, you know.
They were all very good in the Opera House on whenever it was I went, Wednesday. They were all very good. Everyone kept their masks on all the way through, you know, and avoided each other, did this little dance around each other, you know.
Theatres have been very well behaved, I think, with mask wearing. I haven't really seen anyone not wearing one in a theatre, and I've been to quite a few things. Like, I even went to a couple of things like in the summer when a few venues opened up again. I went to Sleepless at the Troubadour in Wembley, and that was very good as well. Their safety was excellent, and everybody was spaced out, and everyone was wearing a mask, and it was a very natural experience. All of the cast had been in a bubble together and sort of living in a house, and were tested every day. Like, I know the testing and the safety at the Old Vic for A Christmas Carol, even though it's streamed, you still got such a large cast who've basically taken over the whole of the theatre. They've got like dressing rooms in the auditorium and all sorts of things, sort of, yeah, because they've had to, because they don't have that much space, they've had to adapt the whole venue in order to put this production on and to make it safe. But I actually know that the person who is the COVID safety officer, and she just constantly has to remind people all the time, about wearing their face masks and keeping distance, between people, because if somebody, contracts it, it will shut the show down and they won't be able to put it on, so it's all those variables I think that theatres have to take into account. And I think it's only the brave ones who actually go ahead. I think that there's a lot of venues out there that perhaps not that brave, to kind of go through that.
There hasn't been a single case, has there, of COVID spread through live theatre?
No, or
cinema
either, or
at least that we know of.
Because I've been involved quite a lot in a lot of the groups around cinemas, and they've been treated quite unfairly, and sort of forced to close. And there hasn't been any. There's been none at all, because I think I aren't quite sure about that one I went to on Sunday. I'm still like a bit uncertain about that, because it was one of those situations where it was the first time I think that I'd actually sat in a theatre and actually felt a little uncomfortable. And you don't really want to be in that situation, and all they had to do was space people out a little bit more, but having people who are virtually sitting right in front of you, like half a meter away, and people sitting behind you sort of half a meter away, that's not socially distanced. And when you talk to staff about it, it was all like almost, oh, it's normal, we are doing what we're supposed to be doing, and almost dismiss you in a way, as if you're being like an over panicky person, where it was really a little unacceptable, but we have fed it back, so hopefully it'll have some sort of impact. But everywhere else I've been has been really good, and I've got Hampstead the Dumb Waiter tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see what it's like there. And I've got Christmas Carol the musical on Monday as well.
Tim, I don't think it's just bravery in the case of the theatres who are opening. I think it's just it's hard work and logic and planning, as well. Because Derby Theatre, as I said, they're doing the Little Mermaid. It's a two-hander, and what they've done is they've got two casts. So they've got a cast of a young man and woman, and then a separate cast who are bubbled up of another young man and woman, precisely because if one bubble fell ill, the show would be able to go on. So it's they've done their best to minimise the professional risk as well as the health risk.
Yeah, I think I completely agree. I don't think I was saying it was all venues and all theatres. I think it does count. It comes down to the logistics sometimes, and finance, and what an actual venue can achieve.
Whether there are staff left after all the redundancies.
Yeah, and that is the whole thing, because a lot of venues have been decimated financially and have lost so much money, and some are struggling and just can't find a way, to put things on. There's almost got to be a little bit of recovery time, a bit of healing time. And then a lot of venues have been waiting for funding, to come through, and rely on that. And then the furlough scheme was changing and ending, and then it started up again. And yes, so there has been lots of variables, but I think that there is, it's really nice, that it's really nice that there are things sort of popping up, and there are things happening, and it's quite nice that Kudos got money from the lottery in order to put some toes on, even though a couple of those have been closed down because of tier 3. Like, I know the Regent in Stoke was all set to go with theirs, and they're quite high at the moment, so they've had to shut theirs down. And I think Birmingham are waiting to see what's going to happen, because they're supposed to be doing theirs on the 15th of January, and haven't announced closure on that yet. But so there's still so much uncertainty around, but it's nice that things are happening and going ahead. And a lot of these things have sold out, like the Audio Described performances have completely sold out for Milton Keynes and the London Palladium and Southampton have completely sold out, you know. So even though it is a reduced capacity, it's there's not any more availability anyway, you know, because it shows that there's enough people who do want to go, who are actually booking up and actually prepared to go, you know, because I think we've missed it for so long now. And I know a few people who said, oh, I'm not comfortable yet to go into a theatre yet. They've changed their mind and they've decided to go, you know. So I think it's a very interesting time ahead, especially with the transition that I think is going to take place in the next few months. Are there any other topics anyone would like to sort of discuss?
Sorry, Joe here. Just trying to respond to Kira in the chat, but my screen has frozen. I wonder if you could let me have your email address, and I will contact you with more details about joining Ada.
Okay.
As a member.
Okay, I will write right now to the chat.
Thank you. If I can get to it, because it's frozen on me for some reason. I don't know. Yeah.
Tim has my email.
Who has?
Because Tim has my email because I receive letters from him. So if your chat won't work, you can ask him about my email.
Let's leave it.
I think it's
well, welcome, Kira. It'd be lovely. And Tim, if you could kindly pass on Kira's email address. Thank you very much. And I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you.
So are there any other topics anyone would like to talk about before we sort of bid farewell to this?
Thanks for the tip about the theatre.
Yeah.
I have a delicate question. Has anybody else been approached and asked to lower their price?
No.
I have on a couple of things, I've been asked.
I've been asked to give prices, whereas before, I mean, when you're always asked to quote, but on the occasions, luckily in the particular theatre I was asked by, I know them well enough to go back and said, I would rather charge what I've always charged. Is that okay? And they said yes. I think sometimes we were asked to set prices because what we were doing was new, and so it gave them an excuse to ask for some different rates because we're using digital stuff and everything. I think they probably hoped that, and certainly Sightlines we've drawn up a new schedule of fees which deals with the more digital stuff we get asked to do, or the variations on what we get.
Are you charging less for digital stuff, Julie?
It probably does work out less. But
I mean, there's no travel, obviously.
There's no travel, and the expenses are down. It probably does work out less. We've tried to be realistic, and we've tried not to panic into charging too little. And for that, I have Jonathan to thank, because I'm really lousy at negotiating that sort of thing. And I would always charge too little, and I always run it by him, and he tells me it's too little, and we bump it up. And we have never been turned down because of it.
We have to resist, we really have to resist lowering our fees, absolutely. Insist that we're professionals. We haven't had work since March. We're freelancers. We weren't entitled to anything from the government. And why would they ask the director to cut their wages? Would they ask the lighting people to cut their wages? You know, and I think the answer would be no.
That's exactly what Jonathan said to me when I was saying about, because I just phoned Jonathan, by the way. He's well, by the way, but he said exactly that. Would you ask everyone else to cut their fees? Yeah.
Well, let the House ask the question. I think some people just asked the question, and we just said, no, we're still charging the same, and they didn't. That was fine. They didn't.
I think a lot of places are looking at their budgets, aren't they? So that's probably why they're asking a question, because they.
But quite a bit of the money, Tim, has been that's been handed out to venues, mistakenly giving it to venues rather than to, you know, other ways of doing it, is contingent on the fact that they must provide access. And it's a bid for that money, for that 1.67 billion. Access has to be provided, so we need to hold people to that. And
we have to keep reminding them of that. I think we do have a responsibility and I've reminded a few venues about that, and then they've changed their attitude. So I think as long as we speak about that and we sort of communicate it, you know, because I think sometimes that access is a responsibility, and some venues, you know, don't have it as a priority. And I think that if you remind them of that, it can be a bit awkward, but it does sometimes, it puts them in their place.
Another issue has been that in some theatres they've obviously made redundancies and they've lost their access person.
Yeah.
It means that the contact has been lost with their regular audio describer or regular BSL interpreter or captioner. And they've been reaching out possibly to people who wouldn't normally do that venue. So I think we need to be open about it, and actually, if you know you've been offered a job that is primarily somebody else's, that we ought to be kind of generous about it.
Well, as a sort of community of audio describers, is there a sort of standardized list of rates that can be referred to so that people don't accidentally undercut each other? I mean, in this case, I stood my ground and I pointed out that it was a legal obligation to provide access for our blind audience members, and also that there was funding set aside for that, which surely hadn't been spent this year given the COVID situation. And I'm afraid I was told that the access person had been told that because of the vast amount of debt being run up, because of the not being able to put on shows and what have you, unfortunately that funding was kind of subsumed into the general debt. But having said that, the theatre came back and gave, you know, an offer of the normal price, because I hadn't sort of capitulated or whatever. But if we had a sort of a going rate that you could point at and say, well, actually, this is generally what people receive, I think that would back people's arguments up or give them the confidence to stand their ground. I don't know what people think about that.
No, I completely concur with that. And I think that's a really important topic to bring up at the next meeting when we're fresh.
Yeah, I did.
To discuss it properly, because this is clearly the realm that we're all getting into. I had the situation yesterday. Anyway, I did a 12-hour day for peanuts, which is fine. But that's because the person I was working with had accepted a rate because we all need the work, and then when you take the slices from it, there's nothing left to give to the people who are doing the work, and that's okay, but this can't be sustained, and nor should it, for the reasons that you've just outline, Steph? And
I really feel strongly about this.
Yeah.
We're having the same discussion with groups of captioners as well. About rates, it's been discussed over the years on and off lots of times at committee.
Yeah, Neil told me that Jonathan was in contact with Equity about it at one point, about potentially having an equity rate card, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think he was actually, but I don't think that's been followed up on, so we'll look into that.
I think it needs revisiting.
I absolutely agree.
I do,
but
yeah.
for both, we have a rate that through Vocalize, which is a fair rate, and it's been really thought through, but it does only pertain to vocalized describers for digital work, and that is a guideline, and we all know where we are if it's a vocalized job that we're doing. But of course, as is clear, we will get the work where we will accept often, you know, because we need the work. So I think Ada ought to be, I agree with you, Steph, we need to discuss this, but I don't know who, you know, finalize a rate, whether it goes through Equity, whether you get, I don't know. It is the same argument that we often come back to, or the same discussion we come back to.
I think it probably needs to be guidance in the first instance, so that you can actually get somewhere. So you can actually say to theatres, you know, this is on a par with what I'm being paid by by other theatres, so that that's a kind of shared rate. I'm not sure we can fix it in blood, as it were, particularly when we've still got volunteer audio describers around. You know, they're still for nothing.
Do you guys charge the same rates for all the different types of theaters? Like, is it audio description is this rate no matter what the theater size is? Okay, I just want to, because we kind of go by seat number.
Vocalize different rates for smaller theatres.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of go by seat numbers, depending on, like, our biggest theater has 11,000 seats, so we charge them more than a nonprofit that has 200 seats. Okay, and
it works the same though.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and we have a different price for a nonprofit theater versus a not nonprofit theater. But then we charge more for our virtual work than we did for live work because of the software and the equipment and the editing time. But I will say we are on a way different level than you guys are, in the sense that you guys do a lot more work. And you were just saying stuff about volunteers. I'm the only paid describer. The rest of our describers are volunteers. And that's kind of the way it goes in the US. So there's a lot less pre-work that goes into live shows, because they'll preview, they'll do, you know, and then they'll go and they aren't reading a script. They're winging it.
Oh my God. What?
Yeah, I mean, they've had some preparation because they have a script, and they have the script of the show.
Yeah.
And they've previewed the show once, usually, if you're lucky. But then from there, you're mostly making it up. Versus our virtual stuff is scripted, and it's me, the paid person. So, and it's edited and, you know, sound edited and everything. So our virtual rates are actually quite a bit higher than our live rates.
Yeah.
So.
Megan, is that the same all across the US, that it's spontaneous like that?
Yes and no. I'm sure probably if you went to Broadway shows, it would not be like that. I do know for a fact, actually, if you went to a Broadway show, it's not like that. It is scripted. But I would say, by and large, if you went to any city in this country other than New York City, and even in New York City, if you weren't on Broadway, chances are it's gonna be more like that, and it's gonna be volunteer work. There's a real disconnect on between ASL, or American Sign Language here, and captioning, and then describing. Just no one knows what a describer is. you know, every show that you go to has ASL interpretation. No shows have audio description. So, and it's kind of still falls in that realm of charity work, you know, and we're a nonprofit. So we're kind of making it worse by saying, okay, well, we're a nonprofit and we're providing this service for you, and our volunteers we're going out to help these poor people who are, you know, that sort of mentality, which is why people often also don't want to pay us.
We had this about 25 years ago when I've been driving, and about 5 years into my describing career, we made the jump from being non-profit and being volunteers or just having expenses paid. But there was the same sort of arguments. Quite a few describers then who'd been describing a while didn't want to make that leap and wanted to remain volunteers.
Yeah, we have a lot of that. I mean, we have people that have been describing before audio description was a thing in the US. I mean, and also they kind of play by their own rules also. They don't really follow what we would say, you know.
That can be a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem, especially when I'm like, okay, you're going to have this training and I'm training you and this is what the training is. And well, I've been doing this for 20 years and I say that the dress is beautiful. Okay, you know, like, I'm not paying you and you're volunteering your time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's again, I will say you guys are leaps and bounds ahead of us in so many ways. That I try to glean as much information as I can from you every time I come to these things. So yeah, we have different prices for everybody and we are winging it for the most part. Unless it's virtual, then it's totally scripted. And there also are not a lot of places that provide the service around the country like we do. And I have found that during these past 10 months, some of the few connections I had in other cities, mostly from nonprofits like mine, just stopped describing and didn't take the leap into virtual. They just said the theaters are closed, the end. You know, turn on the TV and watch Disney Plus. They have audio description, basically.
It's, excuse me, Margaret here, since you can't see me. If it's allowed, and maybe this will come up at the next meeting, I would be really grateful to be given a copy of the rates, if they are publishable, for Vocalize and Sightlines. As I've explained before, the only describing I've done since I moved to England was the Panto, and I charged them what Audio Description Scotland lays down as the fee. But if I were ever to get offered work by Malvern Theatre, I wouldn't have the faintest idea. If they said, what are you going to charge? I simply wouldn't know. And so I would appreciate being able to see what is, if you like, the norm and deciding what to do. But I just don't know what the rate at all.
Margaret, could I interject here, because I was looking at the rates. Yeah, hello, it's Jo here.
Yes.
It's a sensitive topic which might need to be taken up with Vocalize, with Matthew at Vocalize directly, because the information is, you know, sort of confidential within the world of the Vocalize.
Okay.
Don't quote me, but it isn't something that any of us is in a position to post in a public place.
Okay.
So, would you others agree?
I could say, as far as Sightlines goes, I'm quite happy to check with Jonathan and Margaret, because we set the rates for Sightlines, and that's Margaret Spittles, and Margaret, we could let you know. Again, it's as Jo said, it's not something but we could let you know privately if you'd like what
right. Yeah. Okay.
And Tim must have your email. And we could let you know privately but I'd have to check with them first.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for raising that, Margaret. I think, and as Mo was saying as well about, you know, it is difficult for those of us that are not working for one of the larger organisations to sort of know what to do in terms of rates, and I totally appreciate why that information is confidential in terms of companies being able to release that, but at the same time, you know, part of what we're concerned about is that we don't want to be hugely undercutting the bigger companies, because we understand why, you know, there's a need to uphold a certain standard and a certain rate, and it's kind of impossible for us as freelancers to do that if we really don't know what those companies are charging. So I think, yeah, I'm really glad that people are talking about it, and that, you know, if we can continue a conversation about a rate card of some kind, then hopefully Vocalize and Sightlines can feed into that conversation without necessarily having to plaster their own rate card all over, you know, public.
Well, I would say that it's only really the COVID and the lockdown that has forced us to make a rate, if you see what I mean. With the various organisations we work with, we tended to negotiate individually, and there was a broad rate. And it's only really the change of circumstance and the change of the type of work we do that's sort of forced us to come up with some sort of rate. Otherwise, it was much less standardised beforehand.
Someone has just asked me to let her have my email address. Who was it who asked me?
That was me, actually, because I think you found us. I think you found us through Notepad, and I don't have you on my mailing list.
Right. So how would I send you my email?
Well, you can send it privately on the message. So if you just type it in the box privately to me, and then I can add you, and it's encrypted in chat anyway, so it's not shared with anybody else.
Is this the
Margaret,
box? Yeah.
Hello, Margaret.
Yes.
I have your email because you recently rejoined as a member, so I will let Tim have your email address. Shall I do that?
Oh, perfect. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
I really feel that, you know, in relation to rates, I think it's something that I think urgently needs a lot more discussion, and through the Audio Description Association sort of exec committee as well. And I think there needs to be some sort of recommended going rate that a lot of audio describers are on the same page with, and then that will create a lot of continuity then, you know, with venues sort of going forward. But I think it's also something a bit of a delicate topic that a lot of people are going to have different opinions on, and when people have the different opinions, it sometimes takes a while to come to an agreement, you know. So but it'll certainly be something that I think we'll raise at the next ADA exec. We're approaching 3:30, so we're almost coming, you know, to the end of the allocated slot we normally have. So is there anything else anyone wants to add before we end this session?
I just really quickly, this is Megan again, I'm sorry. I would be interested to not just in the rates necessarily, but how you charge, or if you're charging by an hour, by the hour, if you're charging by, like for virtual stuff, we charge by working hour versus for a show, we charge per show. And then if they hire us to do more than one show in that run, it's a different price. So I would be interested in to know that kind of breakdown sort of thing also. And then if Kira is still on the line, like the museum work, we're charging by piece. And I was wondering how you guys do that sort of thing also. If you're like in a museum, if we're describing 5 paintings, we are charging by painting piece, basically.
Yes, I'm still here. Well, actually, well, how to explain you? Here in Ukraine, audio description, it's quite new thing. and museums start to work with the blind audience only 5 or 6 years ago. So most of us, we work in museums as senior staff or just museum staff. So like we don't count actually how many things we audio describe, because it's our job. In my museum, my director, he gave on museum several documents where there are 2 people who work with accessibility. It's me and my colleague who works with our site. So we do like that, and that's the model almost in all museums. In the other museum dedicated to books and publishing, I started to work only a month ago. It's like additional work, but we have the same model. I am responsible for accessibility and I'm paid as senior museum staff. So it's our model. Right. Yeah, the same we have at the theaters, but only one theater has official audio descriptor worker, but it's an actor actually. And Kyiv Operetta House, we're waiting for they started the procedure for adding audio describer as a profession in their theater. So
that's exciting.
It's our reality. It's Ukrainian reality, actually.
Yeah. So it's all internal. So if you have an audio describer at a museum, it's someone that works at the museum. And okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So it's the same how we work with deaf people, for example.
Okay.
It's a museum staff who is responsible for accessibility. Not all museums have it, only several. So, but I hope that we will increase number of such museums.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan, sorry, just before we close, would you like me to drop Matthew an email at Vocalize and just try and put you two together just for an informal chat and a bit of support from the UK to the US?
Yes, I would love that. Thank you so much.
It's not that anyone is wanting to be evasive or, you know, unhelpful. It's just sort of doing it in the proper way.
Yeah.
But it sounds as though you're on your own a lot and you're not.
Oh yeah. And by my own, I mean, like, see this world behind me? It's me, myself.
Well, you know, go girl. You're doing fantastically, and keep trying. Be supported, and you're good. Good luck. Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be great. Thanks.
All right.
I think that's another reason why these meetings are just so lovely, because just talking with like-minded people coping with the same things is just so lovely.
And it would be great to sometime meet you in St. Louis.
Meet me at the fair, Day.
Yeah. Who knows? We could have a convention out in the US when we could all get on planes again.
It would be better for me if I went there. It would be a lot easier. I could just go there. I could tour this whole map.
Oh, yeah, you could. Yeah. Well, that's something to look forward to.
Yes,
indeed.
We all need things, I think, to look forward to.
We all need something. Mm.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to wrap it up because we're sort of approaching 3:30. Thank you to everybody for joining.
Yeah, thanks for sorting that, Tim.
Have a wonderful Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
Well, try to have a wonderful Christmas. You know, I know there's lots of restrictions and all sorts of things still in place, and and I still find the 5 days of like sort of COVID mixing a bit strange.
Yeah.
And some people are sort of comfortable with it, and some people aren't. You know, so I think it's going to be a very, very different Christmas for everybody.
But, I got the turkey. Love you.
But try to have the best one you can, and I'll email everybody early January in regard to the next meeting, which I'll probably plan to have around like sometime between the 10th and the 15th. I'll send out a doodle poll to everybody.
Thank you. That's quite
Thank
soon after.
you.
All right.
Bye.
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 Happy
Bye.
Christmas.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Merry Christmas.
Bye. Happy Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
And a hopeful New Year.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Mo.
Bye.
Bye.